All right, here we are with Cory Weeds, founder of Cellar Music Group, and we're catching up today. We had him on about 3 months ago. I think you were on, Cory, where we talked about owning a jazz label and everything that goes along with it, and vinyl records and all that fun stuff. Today, I want to get to a lot of the new releases because it looks like since we last spoke, you've either released or you've got coming out like 30 records, 30 albums, something like that. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So you've been a busy guy. I've had on a couple of people on. Bria was on the channel,
Right.
talking about her new record. She was a lot of fun to talk to. But what I want to talk about before we get into the new releases is this album that's sitting here next to me, which I just reviewed maybe a month ago. Which is a fantastic record, by the way. Home Cooking, a really cool swinging record. But reading the liner notes, it's pretty interesting, and I'm sure there's more to the story than what's on the back. The brief story that talks about some of the adversity you had to face in making this record. So, thank you for coming on the channel, and wanted to hear a little bit about
It's a
that.
pleasure. Thank you for reaching out and thank you for the continued support. Yeah, I mean, I covered pretty much most of it in the liner notes. I mean, I think it was a little bit, more serious than maybe I let on in the liner notes, or that was, sort of discernible from written notes. But yeah, it was I mean, I'll take you through the story, but what I wanted to say off the top was it's amazing artistically and musically what happens when you sort of let go. I don't know if I don't know if you're an artist or if you're a musician, but we take ourselves pretty seriously and we're pretty self-critical, and we're working hard to sound good, but we're very we're very cerebral about how we sound, and sometimes we're not the most objective. And then when you're forced to be in a situation where you're not thinking, and somehow mentally you get to a place where really, for lack of a better description, you don't care. It's amazing the things that happen. So to give you the backstory, the recording was scheduled for a Sunday afternoon, and we were playing two performances at Frankie's Jazz Club on the Friday and Saturday leading up to the Sunday recording. And we were actually recording the Friday and Saturday. And one of the reasons we were recording is because, you talk about vinyl records and releases. We had only arranged, I think, 7 tunes that are on that record. I can't remember, 6 or 7 tunes. And we were a little bit worried that we might be a little short, which we can get into later. But so I said, well, let's record live at the club, and maybe we'll capture a performance of one of the old tunes that we recorded on the first record. Maybe we'll get a really nice performance of one of those tunes, and we can use it to fatten up the record a little bit. So I also had a gig, a completely separate gig on the Thursday night with a singer, a dear friend of mine, a wonderful singer here in Vancouver. I woke up Thursday morning and was very sick. I had a sinus cold and runny nose, sinus infection. I was a mess. And I was going to sub out of the gig on Thursday, but I was feeling really bad about it because, she was excited to be playing with me and wanted me in the band and, all the rest of it. So I medicated myself heavily and went in to do the gig. At the end of the gig, I promptly packed up my horn and put it in its case and put it in the corner behind this instrument cabinet that exists at the club, something I'd done dozens of times, maybe even hundreds of times, and went home and went to sleep. I woke up on Friday still feeling terrible, slept all day. Rehearsal was set for 5 o'clock. So I got to the club at around 10 to 5, and most of the band was ready. It's a 13-piece band, and most of the band was ready to rehearse. And I went to go get my horn, and it wasn't there, which was weird. My music was kind of all over the floor, which was also weird, but there was recording gear, and Sheldon, the engineer, was working to get things going, and I was sick, and the band was warming up, and So I kind of went to the back of the club and I looked around in the office, nothing. I came back, I'm like, my horn's not there. And the manager came out and says, everything okay? And I said, no, it's not okay. I said, I can't find my horn. And he said, you left it here last night? I said, yeah, I left it here. And he got this look on his face. And I knew right away. He said, we got broken into last night and it's gone. Chances are it's gone. So I immediately kind of started getting angry at myself about why wouldn't I put it in the office? And he said, no, it wouldn't have mattered because they broke into the office and they took all the cameras. And so here I am at the club. It's 5 o'clock, 3 hours before downbeat for to play all this new music. And the band is ready to go and I have no horn. So I called my friend over, my good friend, two of my good friends who were in the saxophone section. I said, guys, I have a situation. You know, keep in mind, like, my mouthpiece is in the horn. Like, I have nothing. I have no strap. I have nothing. But because I was sick, I think I was fairly calm, and I'm learning in my older age to sort of remain, you can't think straight if you're not calm. So I was like, guys, my horn's been ripped off. I don't want to get into the whole thing right now, but I need to figure something out, and I need to figure it out fast. So I knew somebody that had a con like mine. My horn was a fairly unique instrument. I called over the director, Jill Townsend of the band, and said, here's the situation. You rehearse the band. I'll be back. So I got in my car, raced over to my friend's house, grabbed his horn, raced to the music store, got some reeds, used his mouthpiece in the horn, and I got back to the club in time to rehearse like 2 tunes. So we rehearsed the 2 tunes. We got through the night. I don't really remember much about the night. I mean, I was so sick. Went home, slept all day on Saturday, went and did the gig on Saturday night. Again, don't really remember much about the gig or how it went, whether it was good, bad, or, it just was a gig. And woke up on Sunday feeling a little bit better. And I went to the studio, and I remember very, very distinctly sort of driving to the studio thinking to myself, this is going to be the worst record you ever made. And at this point, I can't reschedule. I mean, I've got 13 musicians, an engineer, an arranger, a musical director, the studio. Like, it's happening. And I got to the studio, and my attitude was literally like, well, I don't care. I don't care. I can't. What am I going to do? I don't have my horn. I'm sick. I don't have my mouthpiece. So we did the date, and at the end of the date, again, I don't remember much. I just remember wanting to go home. What I do remember is getting an email from my engineer about a week and a half later with the rough mixes of the recording, and I remember being really nervous about it and really apprehensive about it, and I remember I didn't listen right away. And I'm like, okay, well, you got to listen. And I listened to it, and I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, this sounds incredible.
It does sound great.
It sounds really good. And I sort of started just kind of thinking a lot about my mental state that day and thinking to myself, I remember playing and just not caring, like not having any connection to how I sounded or the music. I was just playing. And it was just, it struck me as really amazing, that process, and how I wish I could have that process more without being sick and without getting my horn ripped off, where you just go in where you feel like you've got nothing to lose and just do your thing and not have the mental anguish of that. And so I'm really proud of the record. I think it sounds really good. It's some of my best playing. It sounds like I'm really engaged, which I was not, or maybe I was, but it was
just didn't realize it.
Yeah. So, and I think the music is really good. The tunes, all of the tunes on the record were tunes that I really liked and I was really excited about. I think Jill and Bill did a fabulous job of the arranging. And it's a good record, and I'm really happy with it. And, the horn part was disappointing. I mean, it was a very sentimental instrument for me for reasons that we don't need to go into here. But it was a tough loss. But it also I remember my friend Steve Caldas, that great alto player and great tenor player who plays on the record. He's a very dear friend of mine. He's like, man, I don't know how you did that. If that happened to me, I would have just curled up into the fetal position and asked for my mommy. And you just powered through and just dealt. And I mean, it really is one of those tales of the show must go on kind of thing, And so that's what I did. I mean, I didn't have a horn. Had to do it, and I just did it. So I'm proud of it, and the response to the record was really, really good. So that makes it even better. So
Yeah,
that's the story.
yeah, in the studio. So was it pretty much all the arrangements were kind of passed out to everybody, and then everybody knew exactly, okay, your solo comes here, this comes there, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, we had the gig, the 2 nights, but we had a rehearsal, and then we had the 2 gigs. So the band was pretty tight, and the arranging is really good. But I think Jill and Bill also arranged in a way like it's essentially a tenor. Well, it's not essentially; it's a feature for me. So the arranging is such that sort of reflects that. So it's not. I don't want to belittle the arrangements; they're incredible, but they're not big band arrangements where. The feature is me. It's not a big band arrangement with a couple solos. It's arrangements that feature me essentially playing the melodies and soloing. Some features for the other guys. So a few shout choruses and some orchestrations around the melodies and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was pretty clear when we were in the studio what the solo orders were going to be. We've got a lot of great musicians here in Vancouver. And so we wanted to feature them a little bit. And I'm thrilled the way it sounds.
Yeah.
I really like that. I really like the format. I was introduced to the format.
Like these covers too.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's 2 records in particular. The first one is the Eddie. I got to make sure I get this right. The Eddie Lockjaw Davis Big Band Train Whistle, and then Gene Ammon's Late Hour Special, and they were. They were 2 records that I was very influenced by, and upon turning the record over and seeing that it was a small big band, I was like, oh man, like I want to do that. So we did Big Band Explosion, which was my first record. We didn't put it out on vinyl, came out on CD, and that was also a great record that I'm very proud of, but it was an ambitious record. We did have 2 days in the studio, but I think we recorded 9 tunes. And with the way things are going these days, in the music business and vinyl being back, I'm kind of rethinking the way I think about the length of records. And Jeremy Pelt, my good friend and great trumpeter Jeremy Pelt, kind of helped me out with this. He produced a record for me, and I can't even remember which one it was, but he sent it to me, and it was 42 minutes, and I was like, Jeremy, come on, man, that's not enough time. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, 42 minutes is short. He's like, Cory, why don't you listen to the record and then tell me what you think? So I listened to the record, and of course I loved it, and time wasn't even I wasn't like, that was too short or that was too long. It was an experience listening to the record, and when you think about all of our records that we love, because we're of the same generation, those records were 17 minutes aside. We're talking 34 minutes. And so it's really changed the way I produce records and produce recordings now, whether they come out on CD or not. 40 to 50 minutes is kind of what I'm looking for. So that's right where this record's at. So, it was great.
And then you're doing where if you're putting the extra tracks on the CD a lot of times, if there's anything extra, because I noticed that, instead of doing a 2-record set, okay, we would do a 1 album, and then if there's you may have extra tracks on the CD.
Yeah, we do. And the frustrating part is, collectors and purists get a little upset about that. I'm like, well, like, what do you want? What do you want from me? I didn't invent the format. Like, I can't, I'm not going to put out a double record. It's too expensive. So, sometimes I'll get an email from a purist or a collector or something like, oh, it's a drag, though, blah, blah. I'm like, well, that's just the way it goes, man. I mean, compact discs are 74 minutes, digital is unlimited, and LP is, because you can press the length of an LP a little bit, but then the sound quality goes down,
right.
And then the same people will be calling me saying, oh, the sound quality is bad. It's like, well, what do you want? So, yeah, we try to pick the best tracks and put them on the LP, and that's the way it works.